So, my DM threw out our last campaign and told us all to show up next session with just our dice, leaving our collected materials and sheets behind. When we arrived, he gave us a choice of 0-level NPCs. We were now shit-tier nobodies in a shit-tier town, in a shit-tier kingdom, in shit-tier nowhere. Our party consisted of myself, the village blacksmith, who can't really make anything better than simple or martial weapons, and even then can mostly just make horseshoes and nails and shit. The village healer does not know magic, does not know potions beyond herbal teas, and does not know healing beyond a vague understanding of good hygiene and drinking fresh water. A farmer and a fisherman. We started off on a fine new morning and found out that the local innkeeper had rats in the cellar, eating up his foodstuffs and doing your typical low-level rat shenanigans from every RPG. We were offered the chance to try and locate some sort of wandering adventurer to handle this. We chose to settle the affair ourselves. Total party kill. We re-rolled. This time we played a farmhand, a stable boy, a messenger, and a woodworker. We prepared ourselves ahead of time after hearing of the grisly deaths of the village's only blacksmith, the local healer, and one of the fishermen and the farmhand's boss. We knew exactly how we'd take care of the rats, by sealing them away in that cellar and walling her up. The woodworker prepared his sturdiest boards. We went into the inn only to find the innkeeper dead, and we were beset upon by the rats from the shadows. We had, in our former lives, forgotten to close the door behind us. We attempted yet again, this time as a huntsman, the village drunk, the gatekeeper, and a tailor. We thought things would be a lot simpler. After all, we now had a huntsman, who, while not necessarily a ranger or rough-and-tumble rogue, could at least operate a bow. Our plan this time was to prepare an ambush outside the door of the inn. Our huntsman was ready with his bow and arrow, and he also had a bear trap of sorts that we just set by the door's entrance. We threw the door open. Nothing. We knew they were still inside, perhaps in the cellar, because we could hear the gnawing, the chewing, the terrible chewing. We coerced our village drunk to go inside with a torch, just to rouse the rats and flush them out. He did so, waving the torch around just inside the inn before sprinting back outside and into the bear trap. We tried to assist him, and then the rats were upon us. Our huntsman got off 2 shots. We bludgeoned a wounded rat to death, but they were just too much for us. There were 5 rats in all, 4 remaining after the battle. Now the rats were loose in the village. This time we were playing as a traveling merchant who had been staying at the inn, a baker, a cobbler, and a librarian. A day had passed, the children of the rats grow strong on the flesh of our neighbors, and yet worse terrors such as spiders and a snake plagued our village. Windows and doors are boarded up, the streets are empty. We provided them enough food after all, not that it sated them. We had a new mission now. Survival. Escape. We couldn't convince those who remained in the village, something like 20, ourselves included, that it was wiser to flee. After all, some had lived here their whole lives. A couple were too old to run, a couple too young. We were only able to convince one other. A minstrel, not a bard, sir. The man's music is passable at best and certainly not magical, and make the dash to the gate with us. We waited until the dawn, thinking that with the coming light the creatures that had invaded our peaceful village might return to the shadows. The cobbler, ironically, in his well-made shoes, reached the thick, towering log gate of our village first. We could hear the rats scrambling after us, practically biting at our heels. The minstrel fell to them. We didn't turn back. The cobbler turned, his face pale, screaming, "It's locked!" The gatekeeper had the key. The village was now a tomb. This is unfortunately where our tale ends. We resumed a more traditional and regular campaign, and several weeks went by of standard D&D. At one point, while hiking up in the hills near a forest, we came across an old abandoned village. The gates had been forced open from the outside by bandits, most likely, perhaps the orcish raiders we were after. There was little remarkable about the town, and we found little to take with us. It seemed as though nobody had survived. A few bodies, likely dead for weeks, little but gnawed bones remaining, littered the village's one road. And the story was more or less the same in each of the houses, some of which were quite disturbing. The poor townsfolk had been driven mad, it seemed, from cabin fever. It quite puzzled us, and we theorized out loud what might have happened. If bandits had maybe invaded and forced the villagers to stay in their homes while making use of the village's supplies. It wasn't until we reached the inn and found 4 corpses and a bear trap, one still caught in the jaws outside the door, that we realized where we were. We never bitched about helping out some random NPC with his rat problem again. This recording has been brought to you by my kind supporters over on Patreon. Thank you all for your support.